Ambassador, do you see a way out for the deadlock in which North Macedonia EU accession process is currently in? And recently the parliament in Sofia confirmed that Bulgaria is not prepared to negotiate anything beyond that was agreed from summer 2022. And on the other hand, the Macedonian side, the Macedonian government says that this is unacceptable for her. So do you see a way out from this situation now?
Well, the first thing to say is what's really obvious, which is that the constitutional amendments is the next step in this process. And as much as, I'm very aware of the concerns on the Macedonian side, the concerns of what comes next. I think from our side, what we have said all along is help us to help you, because we want to help. While the constitutional amendments are not done, then the ball is still in Skopje's court. But once they are approved, then the ball is back in our court, in the EU's court, EU member states, EU institutions. And then it's up to us to make sure that the formal negotiations can be launched. Now, if there is some mechanism that can be put in place to build confidence and to make this decision easier, then that's of course welcome. But for now, the ball is in Skopje's court. What we would want to see, of course, is that this moves forward. We are very strongly supportive of the enlargement process. We are supporting this country in what is its stated objective, which is EU membership, and through our reform cooperation program, for example. So we want to see this move forward, and we want it to be in a fair and merit-based process.
The Macedonian government believes that additional demands can arise from the agreement that was reached in 2022, and that these demands can primarily come from the work of the historical commission. So the fear is that new demands will arise from the things that were agreed 3 years ago.
I don't have any specific insights into this commission and its work, of course. That's for Bulgarian counterparts and Macedonian counterparts. But what I can say is that it's important to meet and discuss as good neighbors. It is part of good neighborly relations to be able to sit down and discuss in good faith. So, of course, that is what's important here. I think for us, we see that discussing, meeting is also a European value. So that's important for us. Then there are different versions of history, and I can tell you that we've had very similar problems in that sense in Scandinavia, although it's much further back perhaps in history for us. But it's not uncommon to have different versions of history. But to meet and to discuss is a European value, and doing it in good faith.
When we speak about fears or dilemma, there is a dilemma here in Skopje that even if the constitutional amendments or what is asked from North Macedonia be fulfilled, that the question is if there is really truly desire or preparedness among EU member states to have new member states, new countries to become part of the EU family. And let's say I'll refer to the recent statement of Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs, who said that a minority member states are really in favor for a new enlargement or let's say getting new member states in the European Union.
Well, I will answer this question just simply based on what my own experience is. And I was in Brussels not long ago to meet with all Swedish ambassadors in Europe. And it was a time when we discussed, of course, enlargement. And I've never felt that kind of energy before in Brussels. It is incredibly clear that there is strong impetus. We know that it comes from Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This drive is now there. President von der Leyen has given clear direction to all commissioners to get their organizations ready for enlargement. So my strong sense is that this is happening. We are supportive of it. We consider EU enlargement also as an investment in peace, security, and prosperity for ourselves. We want stability on our continent. So we think it's good for that reason. What I would also say just on momentum, because I know that Macedonians feel that they've heard this before. I've worked on and off for 25 years on EU affairs. What I've seen is that the EU's agenda is as long as my arm. There are so many issues that compete for leaders' attention. It's climate change, war, competitiveness. And what I've learned is that when you have momentum, then that is a priceless commodity. And when you have it, you run with it, because that is your window of opportunity. And it's very clear to me that we are now getting this union ready for enlargement. Personally, I would love to see North Macedonia among the front runners.
How would you assess, first of all, just to be clear, that this is, I would say, dual carriageway. One is the political criteria, but the other one is the technical, the reform agenda. So how do you assess the pace of implementation of the reform agenda here in North Macedonia? Do you see, or is there enough capacity within the institutions to follow the demanding dynamics and fulfill the tasks?
I'm very glad you ask about reforms, because sometimes I felt a bit concerned that Macedonians are given the impression that constitutional amendments is the only thing that is needed to open up EU membership. It is an enormous, like you say, it's 2 tracks, and it's an enormous piece of work that is needed to get the country ready for EU membership. The first, perhaps to mention, is of course the fundamentals. That is about rule of law, democracy, human rights broadly, included in that, of course, the fight against corruption. That's fundamental. But then you also have very technical areas such as environmental standards, in agriculture, transport. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need all the good forces on board to get that moving. What we are trying to do from our side is, of course, to assist in this through our Reform Cooperation Program, and to help authorities, but also on many levels in the country, to increase their capacity. But on the reform agenda more specifically, which is, of course, this country's response to the EU's growth plan. So this is an agenda that is formed by this government. What we will see now, we're getting close to the deadline for when we will have an assessment of the progress. What we know is that it started out quite well, and it's an ambitious reform agenda. North Macedonia has had recognition from Brussels on that, so that's very positive. What we want to see now, of course, is speedy and solid implementation of this reform agenda.
You touched the next question, that's the Swedish help. Your country, bilaterally, is one of the largest donors of North Macedonia. Will the assistance continue, and where do you plan to focus more? In which areas do you tend to help more the country?
It's correct that we have a very large reform cooperation program for North Macedonia. It currently stands at about 11 million euros a year. In the 3 years that I've been here, we've actually increased it by 72%, so very substantial increase. It has one overarching objective, which is to help this country in its own stated objective to become members of the EU. We are, I keep saying, walking the walk together with Macedonians. We're not just talking the talk, and the Reform Cooperation is a very clear expression of that. Like I said before, EU enlargement for us is a geostrategic investment, also in our own security and prosperity. So it's important for us, but of course we also want this for this country. Our strategy that runs our work in this country is currently under review. It's a regional strategy that encompasses all of the Western Balkans. So we will know more in the beginning of the autumn. What we can see is that there's competition for very scarce development resources in the world. We've seen this from different actors, that there is a decrease of resources. What we expect to get is a confirmation of the commitment to this region for the reasons I've stated, that it's good for us, but it's also good for this country that we collaborate in this way. We think we will have similar priorities as before. And if I may just add a point on where this money is coming from, because I think it's important sometimes to state this very clearly. It's not an anonymous purse that is opened and money goes to development cooperation. This is a small percentage of the taxpayers in Sweden, their taxes that come here. It's teachers, doctors, carpenters who give up a small part of their salary to let us use that here for the benefit of both this country and our own. But of course they have the right to expect a return on this investment. So we are very eager to see progress on the path to EU membership.
Your ambassador term is coming to an end. With what impressions and feelings are you leaving the country?
Well, I think I would say that we have made good progress on several areas, and I'm very pleased, of course, with that. Together with an incredibly strong team at the embassy, we have seen a migration hub for the Western Balkans be established in our embassy in Skopje. We have a dedicated team that is now shouldering the responsibility for all countries in the Western Balkans when it comes to migration. We've also, for the first time, had the whole of Team Sweden come to Skopje. So all the different actors involved in trade promotion and assisting in different ways with large-scale trade opportunities, including from our development agency. So that's been a first, and I'm very proud of that. That also came with Swedish companies that can offer their expertise in some of the prioritized infrastructure projects that's planned for this country. So that's excellent. What I would also say is that we've had this increase of development cooperation program. 72% is not a small thing, and we're glad to also be able to report that we have good results from that. If I then can say something perhaps on a more personal note, the one thing that I've never understood here is the concept of katastrofa. People say to me that everything is very bad and everything is katastrofa. But what I see in the work that we do here in the embassy, we meet so many partners in different fields in this country who are such impressive people. They are hardworking and they're determined and they plow ahead, also against the backdrop, and I will readily admit this, of multifaceted challenges of all sorts. So I'm not diminishing the problems, but what I see is that there's so many good forces in this country who can really make a difference. They are doing it now, and if they join up, they will push this country forward. And I have met them among politicians, among officials, students, journalists, in civil society, in academia. There's a lot of impressive people here, so I don't agree that it's all katastrofa. That's one of the main things I take away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.